Hi, my name is Jonathan White, and I'm a professor of sociology and political economy at Bridgewater State University in Massachusetts, and a longtime friend and board member of Free the Children. Now that we've learned a little bit about what globalization is, and a little bit about the current dynamics of poverty in the world, of wealth in the world, and of how globalization is kind of interplayed to create dynamics between the wealthy and the poor, I think it's very important for us to move on and to start to look at some of the dynamics of what we could do. One of the areas that's most important to examine is our own consumption. How do our choices as consumers affect the world of wealth and poverty? Last year, the world spent $18 billion purchasing cosmetics. For $15 billion, we could provide basic health and nutrition for every human being around the world. Last year, Americans spent $11 billion eating ice cream. For $9.5 billion, we could provide clean water and clean sanitation to every single human being in the world. Last year, we spent $12 billion purchasing perfume. That same $12 billion could provide reproductive rights for all women around the world. We spent $17 billion on pet food last year. In Europe and the United States combined, $10 billion would provide basic education for every child in the world up to an 8th grade education. And last year, we spent $55 billion playing golf. For that same $55 billion, we could provide clean water, education, healthcare, sanitation, and basic nutrition for every single human being around the world, and we would still have some money left over to play a few rounds of golf. We spent $65 billion just in Europe purchasing cigarettes. We spent nearly $100 billion in the United States alone on alcohol. We spent $500 billion last year as a world on illegal narcotics, drugs. And last year, the world spent over $1.5 trillion on military. Taking those numbers of the way we spend our money and considering reallocating those towards the basic human rights of all people, we could eliminate poverty, and we could eliminate it nearly immediately. If we were to just cut military expenditures around the world by 12%, and apply that to the eradication of poverty, we would eradicate poverty. We could provide safe water for everyone. We could provide food for everyone. We could provide health care for everyone for 12% less on military spending. We could still spend 88% fighting the wars we want to fight. 1% of global income could eradicate the worst forms of poverty. That is to say, if we put a 1% tax on every single human being, all 6.8 billion people around the world, a 1% tax on them from the wealthiest to the poorest, and we applied that to ending poverty, we would end poverty. We could just take instead 6% of the income of the world's billionaires, the 1,000+ people in the world who have $1 billion or more, and if we applied that properly, we could end world poverty. So though it's sad and upsetting and really truly perverse that there's so much desperate poverty around the world amidst so much abundance and overabundance and wealth, the solutions lie right out there. To find true answers, we also have to challenge the current form of neoliberal economic globalization, taking a look at some of the global governance organizations like the World Trade Organization, or the WTO, the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF, the World Bank. Those three organizations, along with a whole series of trade treaties between countries, have kind of put the world economy into a puppeteer mode, where the wealthy are puppeteering, in a sense, the rest of us, but mostly the poor people, and thus we see the greatest gap in human history between those who are wealthy and those who are poor. On a local level, we can raise money, we can raise awareness for Free the Children's Adoptive Village program. Through the Adoptive Village program, we build schools and put kids in schools. We build clean water and clean sanitation. We provide microdevelopment projects to bring economic security to women and their families and their communities. And ultimately, through programs like the Adoptive Village program, we create sustainable development, lifting the poor out of their poverty, working side by side and partnering with them in a holistic model. Ultimately, in answering the question, is globalization working? The answer is yes, it's working to create the type of wealth that leaves us at a moment for the first time in history where we could rather easily eradicate all of the worst forms of poverty, make sure everybody has proper nutrition and health and water and sanitation. And sadly, the other true answer is that no, globalization is not working. It's not only creating wealth for the wealthy, but it's driving the poor into deeper and deeper poverty. But the good news is that all of the answers are out there. We have the capacity to end the worst forms of world poverty. Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Through programs like Adoptive Village, through challenging the global institutions like the World Trade Organization, through creating massive education and awareness, indeed, we can change the world.